All right, here we are. We're on a roll. The library's homepage, as I said, I want to focus on one resource that does a lot. It's a lot of bang for your buck, and that's why I like to focus on it. But do know that we have more of these things called databases. So if you're interested in venturing into some of the other resources that we have, that's fine. We can set up an appointment, whatever works for you. But I'm scrolling down to go to the databases box here on the library's homepage, and here are 325 databases, containers of articles that you can venture into. I'm going to go to the letter W for Web of Science. And like I said, this is a pretty powerful resource. It does a lot. It shows you hot papers in different fields and disciplines. It shows you some highly cited articles. It shows you some articles that have been funded, some research that have been funded. So that's all very important. Not to mention the fact that it's just a really good resource for all disciplines, even though it's called Web of Science. And that is because journals from all the disciplines live in here. And they are those, what we like to call those gold standard journals. So they changed the interface over the summer. So if maybe you used it at another institution and it looked different, that's why. And this new rendition has a lot of pop-ups, just a warning for you. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to be very broad in my initial search here. There we go. Higher education, and I put that in between some quotes so it sticks it together in my result list. That's a rule of thumb. Now, if we were working one-on-one, I would say, you know, that's not narrow enough, but I want it to do some things to show you. That's why I'm going to go ahead and tell it to go search. See, we get another pop-up. Drives you crazy. All right, so here's our result list of, oh, my dog is 489,000 articles. That's crazy. But lucky for us, we can refine within this results. And that's what I would work with you on and that kind of thing. So you can do that on your own if you feel so empowered. Do know over here that your result list is arranged by relevance. And that means relevant to what you have typed in the search box. So how relevant are your nouns that you're using to this result list? That's what it's doing. What I wanted you to see examples of are these filters on the left. So you see some highly cited papers, and that is pretty amazing. There's over 3,000 highly cited papers. You can refine by that. And what that means is over on the right, you're going to see, all I see are your faces. I love that. But what you'll see underneath the boxes of faces, the articles that have cited, for example, number 1, and the list of references, how many of each of those. So if you were to pursue these, you just click on them. And if they live in this database called Web of Science, they will show up as citations, just like the page we're looking at here. Okay, so it's giving you that information, that genealogy of the article, basically, okay? And so that's pretty powerful. It's getting talked about, this particular article, for one reason or another. It's not always good sometimes, you know, if articles are being cited and talked about, but nonetheless, you need to know that as part of your overall knowledge of your field and the topic at hand. I do want to open one of these just so you know what you're going to do. If you click on the title, oh, here we go, more offers. Thank you. Okay, so it gives you an abstract, which is great, fabulous. I want to scroll down because it shows you that this one has had some funding, this research. All right, and you can see down here the fund. You can see who the funding agency is. You can get some more details. Yeah, that's pretty important because sometimes we come to a topic and we're like, I don't even know if this would ever be funded. And that's where you work with sponsored programs, administration, but also you can get in here and do some digging and see if your idea has had any bites before as far as funding. How do you get the actual article? Just real quickly, this multi-link box lives in all of our databases, the 300 and some that came up. And so as graduate students, as any student studying here, you have access to Interlibrary Loan, which is a service you can have the article sent to you if we don't have it full text. So even though it says all of this full text stuff, may not be true. You have to actually go multi-link, because what that does is it goes and looks for the article for you, because it may be in another database. So this one, it has open access. If you noticed initially, there was a little padlock that was open. So there you go. So you could download it, find it, download it, you're good to go. All right. How do I get out of this? I can't see. Let me do something here. People, where'd we go? Sorry, guys. Good grief. So I need to go back to my article. I apologize. I'm not seeing how I get my screen bigger again. Any wild guesses?
It's behind your Jabber icon.
My chat?
Yeah.
No. There. That shouldn't even be on there. Okay. Thank you. Apologies all over the place. So here it is. If we had to interlibrary loan it, they would send it to you as a PDF. It takes about 7 to 14 days to get that, and it's yours to keep. And you're notified by email when it comes in. So read your email from the library. Okay. And so I'm going to go back to my result list.
Brenda?
Yes.
On the interlibrary loan, that is something that students need to sign up for. Is that still the case?
The first time that they use it, you will set up your account. It is, let me see if I can get there. Oh no, we've left the building. It is on the home page. There is a link. Okay. And so as soon as you open that screen, you will have to log in. It's your contact information. You do that once while you're a student and you're good to go. And you know, you're already paying for those articles and that service, so you might as well use it. So
thanks.
All right, so not only do we see highly cited papers, but we also see hot papers. And the difference is the hot papers are those that are kind of new publications, kind of new research that are getting a lot of attention. They might not have been around as long as the highly cited. You know, it takes time for articles to be cited in the discipline. And so the hot papers are, I like to point students to those if they need an idea for a project, or if they're like, what's going on in my field? You know, I really don't know because I'm new. And so that's a good tool to keep in mind. Now, with just putting in higher education, I also wanted you to see down and on the left some of the filters with Web of Science. One of them is specifically for funding agencies. And so you can come in here and see, okay, higher education, while we've established that that's a very broad topic, it is getting a lot of funding, but it's from several different sources of funding, and maybe you're interested in one in particular. So you want to see the 347 articles or projects that got funded by the National Science Foundation. So you can refine the list to that, and here they are. And then within those, you can see those that are hot papers and highly cited. So you've got this ginormous higher ed, and then funding, and then even more specific to the highly cited and hot papers. Review articles. The reason I'm showing you Web of Science is a lot of times when you apply for a grant, you have to place your project within the literature. And so a literature review is a portion of a grant application. It's not nearly as big as you would do necessarily for a dissertation or a thesis. So, but it is still essential that you know what you're talking about. And so sometimes these review articles can be beneficial as well. So within this, there are 61 review articles. Now, keep in mind, review articles are not always a literature review. Okay, they can be a systematic review of fill in the blank. So how do you get to those literature reviews? Because sometimes it is beneficial to see if your topic has a literature review about it that would fit. And again, with higher education, we're going to get some, I'm sure. But my whole thing is search with what you want, right? If you want qualitative studies, put in qualitative. If you want quantitative, put in quantitative. If I want literature reviews, I'm going to tell it literature reviews, no records found. If I went back to our original bazillion results instead of the 347, we would, I'm going to X out our funding and our highly cited, and I'm going to put in literature reviews. And so there are over a couple thousand literature reviews. So it can be helpful. I would pay attention to the date, and you can see where these literature reviews are published, so what type of journal, right? So they have a flavor about them, and if that's not your area, then that certainly wouldn't be one you'd be interested in. But it is helpful to see how they're put together, I think. Questions? Confusions? Okay. There are some, and this is strange, there are some products here by this company that I recommend getting familiar with. One is, Augusta and I like to giggle about the poublons. It's just a cool word to say, poublons. Basically, it's an umbrella way of keeping all your research together. And folks from SPA will talk about orchids as well. But these are ways to manage your scholarly activities, if you will, and to keep things tidy for yourself. So you're not like, oh, I did that 2 years ago. Why isn't it showing up in everything I've done? Well, this allows you a way to manage all that. To manage your stuff is the way I like to put it. So it is a way to set yourself up with your professional affiliation and that kind of thing. In addition, the essential science indicators, this is a way, and I can work with you one-on-one. It's a way to see, because I know some of you are maybe drawn toward or pointed to a particular journal. This is a way to see articles within that span of the journal, what's gotten the most attention. And so if that works for you, shoot me an email. It would take us about 10 minutes to go through it, but I won't go through it today. It's multiple steps and whatnot, but you wouldn't know that's what it does. Essential science indicators, what in the world is that? Well, it's a way to bring the important articles to the top. You get to define the journal, that kind of thing. So, all right. I think that's about it. Do keep in mind too that when you're searching your initial search of Web of Science, we did a noun, right? but you can change that field, and affiliation is one of those options. So you could type in the university here and you could see who's published in Web of Science faculty-wise from Ball State. So if your faculty members are saying such and such from such and such, you know how it is when you're a lecturer and there they go, right? And you're like, what did they publish? So this is a way to track that down if it's in Web of Science. Okay, I think that's about all I have. Thank you for your patience. I totally appreciate it. It's been a day. Thank goodness it's Friday, but my goodness, it's Friday. All right, so what questions do you have for me?
I didn't see any questions in the chat so far.
Okay.
So this is being recorded and we are going to have it available afterward, as well as any handouts that we think might be helpful. Brenda, I did want to mention that your audio was sort of like going in and out. Like we could hear you, it just sounded like you were in a hallway way down there.
I'm in a very big empty room. Maybe that had something. Oh, I'm sorry. I will turn it up.
Well, I think it was like when you turn your head away from your microphone.
Oh, okay. Maybe I should do this. Is that better? Okay, so I'll pass it over to you, Augusta.
Okay, thank you. I am going to share my screen. Yeah.
We actually did have a quick question come in that you could answer, Brenda.
You have such faith in me. Thank you.
It says, would you say that Web of Science has as many articles as some of the other popular databases?
Oh, that's a really good question. I would say yes, but I would also say that it has different articles. So for example, you use the word popular, but maybe Academic Search Complete, maybe you've heard of that one. That's a popular one. It doesn't have necessarily the gold standard journals totally in it. So when you mark the scholarly peer reviewed, those journals are not necessarily what you're going to find in Web of Science. Web of Science is just those academic scholarly articles. Okay, so that's why you need to fill in the holes with Academic Search Complete, maybe APA PsycInfo, you know, some of these other databases. But for your time, for your energy, for those gold standard journals, Web of Science is the go-to, in my opinion. It does different things than the other databases, especially that genealogy part.
Awesome. And thank you, Che, for monitoring the chat because I can't see it now. So I'm going to go over kind of the sponsored projects aspect of finding grants. So I noticed approximately a little over half of you are new to grant seeking. So we'll start at the beginning. Sponsored projects are exactly that. They are projects that are sponsored by an external entity. And so, and I say external entity, but it could be an internal grant, but still it's being sponsored by something. Somebody is giving you funding to do your project. So, and I'll try to be careful, but when I refer to research, it really is just like scholarly activity. So that is creative endeavors, that is, creative endeavors, writing a book, all the way to field work and, bench science. So there's a lot that can be funded by a grant. And so why would you want a grant? Well, for, supplies, materials, those sorts of like the nuts and boltsy stuff that you think about. But it can also be for travel. If you need to go to conferences, if you need money for dissemination, for publication. I hear that publications are, just as important for students as they are for faculty, especially if you're thinking about later on getting into academia as a profession. All of that is important documentation to start early. And, as students, probably not so much, but definitely like your time. If you get a fellowship, that's your time. If, you end up being a faculty member, that could be, your time. That's your summer salary that you can get from a grant. Things like participant stipends. So if you need incentives to get people to take your survey or participate in your study, that's, those are things that can be paid for from a grant. So that's all the what is it and perhaps why. And so when you're thinking about your work and like why you might, so you've decided that you're going to do your work and you need a grant to fund it, what are the things that you should think about? You should think about putting like a concise summary of your work. So they always talk about like the elevator speech or whatever, the elevator pitch. What do you say in an elevator if somebody about your work, if you have like 30 seconds to tell them and get them excited about it? That is essentially the spoken word of a grant proposal. You have this much time to get somebody, a stranger, excited in your work. And so that can be pretty challenging. So grant writing itself is an interesting form of writing. That's it's like a Venn diagram of academic writing, where like academic journals and grant writing, they kind of coexist like this, but they are very different forms of writing. So that's kind of the background of it. And in terms of finding funding, once you have your elevator pitch and you kind of have that concise idea of what it is you want to do and what it is you're looking for, then that's the time when you go and look for an opportunity. And finding a funder that complements your work is kind of the next step, because when you go look for a funding opportunity, you are looking for a sponsor who basically they want to give you money, and so you have to fit your work within their mission, essentially. And so I'm going to show you some tools on how to do that, but definitely always remember these are tools. And Che will show you later that once you find that funding opportunity in a funding database, then you'll go out to the sponsor website and find more information. So here is our wonderful website, bsu.edu/FPA. And right at the top, we have find funding, because we know that that's why people come to our website typically, or to find find a name to talk to, but finding funding is typically the one they want. So we have it broken down into faculty and students, basically the same information, just a little bit different presentation. Our database is called the SPIN database. This is also located on the university library's database website. So you can find it from there as well. In the SPIN database, we have just this button to go out to the SPIN. We do have, it is single sign-on, and so please choose your name, choose Ball State from the dropdown, and go ahead and log in. And do that now. And this is a very straightforward interface, and similar search functionality to pretty much anything, any other database you've ever interacted with. Mine looks a little bit different because I am an administrator of the system, but you should have very similar options. So there's the search function, which has text, which is just like basic text search. You have keyword search because this is a database. And so all of the opportunities are cataloged with tags and things. So that's what they mean by keywords. And so when you go into that one, you'll like choose keywords from a pre-selected thing. And then there's the advanced search, which gives you a number of different options to do both text and keyword and add in a whole bunch of other parameters to search with. And so if you're familiar with what you need, you can do advanced, but I suggest starting with the text search first and seeing what you get. Beyond that, we do have some other some search functions that are built into the system. Feel free to peruse them, when you're bored and have all kinds of time in the world, right? So I'm gonna do higher education as well and see what we get. Thinking. Well, while it's thinking, are there any questions? Because I went through that pretty quick. No, okay. And feel free to just pop any questions that you have in the chat. It doesn't have to be necessarily about the thing that I am talking about right in the moment, and we'll try to answer it. So within this window, you'll see a number of opportunities here that then we can filter. These little guys are filters up here. With logging in under your username, you can actually save searches and you can bookmark opportunities to come back to later. And so here, let's see, these are awards, don't want awards. Okay, here, Alaska Space Program, higher education grants. That sounds super exciting. So once you open it up, you probably can't see that, huh? That sucks. So once you open it up, a pop-up will come up and that you won't be able to see. Let me see if I can get it in the browser. Okay, so this is what it looks like just in a pop-up. You'll see that you can bookmark the program here. It will give you a number of different items here in the overview, including like a summary, the program information. This is the important link that Che is going to talk about in a minute. You can see the deadline, and here it says none is posted. So you'll always want to go out to the website, the sponsor website, to make sure that you're getting the most up-to-date information. Because again, this is a database. It's a good starting point, but it's not the be-all end-all. Databases are somewhat, well, in terms of this software, they are somewhat automated, but at the same time, there are humans behind it, which means that they're subject to human error as well. So always be sure to go out to the sponsor website to get that latest information. This can also tell you about the eligibility for it. This one, I assume that has to be somebody from Alaska. That's always a fun one. Piece of eligibility that is like in the fine print of every grant opportunity. It's like, oh, you have to be in this certain county in Georgia to be eligible for this. So definitely read the fine print on the eligibility. And a note for students on working with and obtaining grant opportunities, you will need a faculty mentor. It doesn't have to be somebody in your department, but somebody that is familiar with your work. And And so that is, if you're applying on behalf of the university, if it's like a scholarship or whatever, that's perhaps a different beast. But in terms of external grants for scholarly activity, you will need a faculty mentor. Just kind of a note. And then, yeah, so here, institution instructions, if you're interested, then you can contact your proposal manager, which can also be found on our website. It's on every page, I'm pretty sure. That's up here at the top. Of course, it's not there, but back on our homepage, this button right here, this contact a proposal or grant manager, that will take you to the information where you can find who you're supposed to talk to if you're interested in finding a or applying. Eligibility here, it gives a little bit more detailed stuff. And then funding, it says how much and how long. These are some guidelines. Deadlines, again, nothing's posted. And here's the contact information that they have found for this particular sponsor. And then again, this is a database, so everything's organized by keyword. If one of these looks interesting, so we're interested in higher ed. Okay, well, really, curriculum development is really kind of where we're headed, or something that you want to find more information, you can actually click on it, and it will show you additional opportunities. Unfortunately, these are not clickable. I don't know whether you can see that. Okay, these are not clickable, but you can search by them. And you can search by the number or the title. So questions about SPIN in terms of that. And if this looks really interesting, but you want to come back to it, you can actually bookmark it, excuse me, and create a group, or which a group is just like a folder essentially. And then you can save it. And when you go back to your account, let me refresh this. So when I go to my bookmarks, so this drop down here, I now have one that says higher education and higher education grants. And when I click on that, again, a pop-up that you can't see, it brings me right back to that funding opportunity. And then for these bookmarks, you can save your search and you can have that email you. For you on your end, you can see probably manage saved searches and public searches. On these public searches, these are things that, these are curated lists that I have created based on a number of searches that like search requests that we get regularly. So like food systems and cultural anthropology, those are requests that I get multiple times. And so I've just created the search, and I just want to, you can just click on it and it'll load it up. And if there are, for you or faculty, if there gets to be an interest in a certain subject, we can certainly curate a list or help you develop your search keywords. And so I'm closing in on my time, but I did want to come back around to what Brenda said about ORCID IDs or ORC IDs. I'm not really sure how to say that. That is a unique identifier that can help you as through your, both publications and grant seeking. Those two worlds do collide a lot. It's a very overlapping Venn diagram. And as students, if academia is something that you are really headed toward, that can be a really good thing for you to just go ahead. It's free, go ahead and register. And that ID will essentially follow your scholarly work throughout. And so more and more, we're being asked to put that on grant applications, to share it on grant applications, to share it in the federal databases that track, impact. So, especially federal grants, they want to know that the taxpayer dollars are being utilized and what are the outcomes. And this is one way that they can track that. And it's, it can help you find collaborators. It can help you identify yourself in like ResearchGate and Google Scholar and all of those disparate websites, and also help you track your own impact. So that's something that I definitely suggest. Hopping on, reading more about it, register, and then start using it to track your own work. And then something that's really more for faculty, but it's again a cool tool, is called Science CV. Both NIH, so the National Institutes of Health, and the National Science Foundation are really on board with this Science CV, and through utilizing your ORCID ID, you can pop that into your Science CV account, and it will auto-populate a CV for you and format it in the way that NIH and NSF need it. And for the exports, this is getting a little bit into the weeds, but on the exports of those CV files in those specific formats, they actually have metadata in the back of that file that NIH and NSF and more federal agencies are using to validate the information. So again, that's a trend that we're seeing the world moving towards. And so if you can get on board on the front end of it, that will save you a tremendous amount of time into the future. Plus, like, then you can impress people by being like, look, I have my ORCID ID and I did my Science CV, and it just pops right out, right? So please check into those tools. If you have questions, you can ask me or your proposal manager, whomever that person, you find that person to be. I know that there are some experts on that in the library as well. So you have a number of resources if you're really interested in looking more into that. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and pause for questions.
Hi, this is Katie. I have a question real fast. I was wondering, so I've been on Spin before and I found like a grant, and then I went to ask someone for help and they were like, well, the deadline is really close, and I don't know, they had some other things that they said. So do you have like a recommended deadline and things that we should be looking for? Like, should it be a couple months, or is like a couple weeks too soon? I'm not quite sure.
Awesome question, and I'm sorry that I did not cover this. The university policy is 15 business days out from a deadline, which is approximately 3 weeks. That can sometimes be harder to hit than you would think, but that's kind of the standard. If you're really like looking, especially for students, if you just started, like if this is your first year of graduate study, I would start looking now for something that is due maybe by the end of the semester, because then if you think about your timeline, it wouldn't actually start until next summer. And so the timeline on grants is not quick turnaround in terms of like, yes, there's all the internal approvals and budget stuff, and you got to get your application ready and stuff like that. But really, I think the quickest turnaround time would be for local sources of funding, and it's still about a month, a difference between the time you submit it and the time that you actually get word that you've been funded. Others can be like 6 months. So it really is it's a long view of what you want to do. But yes, generally, if the funding opportunity says like the deadline is next week, that's probably not going to work because there is an internal to Ball State process for getting all of that approved. Thank you for asking that. Other questions? It can be just like general too about grants and stuff. Or maybe you're still processing. So feel free to ask them later.
Augusta, there's a chat comment. Someone heard that at least for scholarships, May and November are 2 months that are filled with deadlines. And that the process usually takes around 12 weeks, depending on what you're applying for.
Well, Che, would you like to do your bit?
Yeah, let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, can you see it okay?
Yes.
Okay, so I kind of wanted to quickly expand on what Augusta was talking about. So for example, if you were, say, searching on the SPIN database maybe, and you found an opportunity that seemed interesting, or if you were just searching on your own in a different way, I'm just going to show you an example of a real sponsor website and some of the resources that they have on their website that will be helpful to you to determine if your project might align with what they're looking to fund. So this is the Ball Brothers Foundation website, and the Ball Brothers Foundation is a local Delaware County foundation that focuses on a lot of community-oriented projects. So on their main page here, you can see the very top row, they have a section for grants. So if you were to look on SPIN or something, and then you get directed to their website, you can go to, a lot of sponsors are going to have something like this. So you can go to their website and click on grants here, and right off the top, it tells you what they fund. So for example, it says the Ball Brothers Foundation funds organizations in Indiana. And it says historically, most of their funding has been targeted to organizations in East Central Indiana with a particular emphasis on the Muncie, Delaware County area. And then it mentions if you're outside of this region, you can still apply for funding for support, but just know that it's rare that they fund things outside of that preferred region. And then below that, it talks a little more specifically about some of the things that they do prefer to provide funding for. So this is just a quick way to see maybe if your project would be eligible or would align with their interests. So if for some reason you found this and you're out of state and you're in Ohio or something, and you have a really great project you want to do that needs funding, but you're going to be operating it, in Ohio, you could probably pretty quickly see that this is probably not something they're going to fund. So you might need to keep looking for sponsors somewhere else. So this particular sponsor has an FAQ, so that will tell you a little bit more about what they do and do not fund specifically. Since this is a community-oriented foundation, you can see their areas of focus. And if you clicked on what we fund, it'll give you an overview of those different areas. A lot of sponsor websites will also tell you what kind of grants it is they provide that you can use to fund the project that you're trying to do. So for the Ball Brothers, they have a general grant, which operates on a sort of calendar cycle where they have specific deadlines at a certain time of the year. Then they also offer a smaller rapid grant that will provide more immediate funding. And then it does designate that there's a pretty big window of when you could submit those grant requests. So again, this is just one specific example, but this is something that you'll come across for just about any funder. So in particular for you as students, especially if you don't really have a lot of experience, as I know many of you don't, in searching for grants, is that many sponsors will tell you what they funded in the past. So the Ball Brothers here has a section where they show you all the projects that they funded. So as you can see, there's a huge database that you can search through. This is in chronological order. So as you can see, just in 2021 alone, Ball Brothers has already funded things for hundreds of thousands of dollars. But this can just be good to look at for any sponsor, if you are, say, involved in education and you might want to do some kind of education related project, if you look at other things that are being funded, it might give you a better idea of, is your project going to align with what they have been funding in the past, to, before you go and bother going through the whole process of applying, that could kind of give you an idea. And then also, if you're somebody who is not currently doing research or like a creative endeavor, but maybe it's something possible in the future, just looking at these for any kind of sponsor that might be in your subject area would be really useful, just to get a sense of what is out there, and especially what kind of things are being funded. As students, you might be surprised, what kind of things can be funded through grants, either through federal or foundation or industry. So I would suggest, no matter what sponsor it is, check those out and just see what they funded in the past. And then secondly, I wanted to go back to the website. So if you go back to the Find Funding section here that Augusta had mentioned, and you click on the Students tab, again, here's the SPIN database, and we are recording this, but there is a previous Zoom session and presentation files if you wanted to reference that. But something as students that you might really be interested in, and I would encourage you to check out, is our Aspire Internal Grants program. So this program has grants for various things that you might be interested in doing as a student, whether undergraduate or graduate. So if you are involved in research related projects, we offer a program for that. If you're involved in the creative arts, so something like the arts or dance or literature, there's also avenues there for funding. If you, say, want to go to a conference and present at a conference in some way that's academically related, there's opportunities to apply for funding to support that travel. And then we also have a more specialized program that is for funding psychology-based types of projects. And then, as Augusta mentioned, support for publications and manuscripts as well. So just to give you a quick look, if you were interested in, say, a research project that you felt needs funding in order to carry out, you can see just a quick overview of what this fund is, a quick example here of how much you can apply for. And then you can see we have our deadlines posted. So if you are a graduate student, the deadline for this for the fall is October. And then we'll have one in November for undergraduate students. And these are going to be twice a year. So we have a fall deadline and a spring deadline. And then you can look at the guidelines if you want the full scope of what is eligible and what the grant entails. And then we also have a list of all of the awardees for the past year or so. So again, this is a good avenue to just look and see, are the type of things being funded maybe something that might align with what you're doing? Are you going to be involved in a project that you think could be funded just like these are? So if you have any questions about any of the Aspire things, we have a link on our website that will give you the Aspire email address to reach out to us. And then if you were to get to the stage where you are going to apply for a grant, you would click on the Apply for Grant. And then that's going to take you to our InfoReady system, and you would just scroll down and pick what you're looking to apply for, and then you would start the process from there, and you would log in with your BSU account.
We do have a question in the chat.
Okay.
I was told if you held a Hollis or an Aspire, you cannot apply for the travel grant. Is that the case in general or just for the particular academic year? It is for the particular academic year. So essentially you can't hold two grants at the same time is the point of that. So if you have an Aspire research grant, the travel, if you need travel, the travel should be coming out of that grant, not, you can't apply for a separate travel fund. But you could the following year. So like if you got a research grant in year one and you finished up that project, then you could apply for travel funds the next year, but you do have to be a current student to apply.
Okay, do we have any other questions at the moment, or does anybody have any other questions?
have another comment that I was awarded an Aspire grant last year. The whole process is very straightforward and that let you know whether you're awarded very quickly. Thank you. I will provide that feedback to Sarah. She will appreciate that.
Yes, she definitely will. Okay, I know we're running out of time, so I have just a couple more things I want to mention. So I did want to bring up the Comm Center as a way to make sure that you get notifications about either grant opportunities or deadlines that come up. So if you're familiar with the Comm Center, you're probably getting like a daily digest, maybe a weekly digest that will just give you a bunch of curated articles that are relevant to you. If you go to commcenter.bsu.edu, you can actually manage your subscriptions and unsubscribe or subscribe to different things and change how often you get them. So if you wanted to, really know right when we send something out that relates to grants in any way, you can go to the academics drop down here. And then there's something that says research programs and grants, which is what we tend to send things out with that category. And so if you switch it to immediate, you'll get it right away. If you're at daily or weekly, you'll get it, in your digest. As long as you don't have it set to none, you'll be kept in the loop in some way. And then I also wanted to mention that if you want to keep track of deadlines and when those are coming up for various Aspire programs, if you go back to the main page of our website and you scroll all the way down, we have a calendar with all that info, and it will show you all the deadlines that are coming up for the rest of the year. And then if you are interested in any of those, you can just click on the article here, and then that will take you to the page where you can learn more about the program. And then the other thing I wanted to mention that as students, we would definitely encourage you to consider or participate in is our Student Symposium. So if I go back to our main page here and go down to resources, there's a box for the Student Symposium. So if you're not familiar with what the Student Symposium is, it's a annual event that we hold in the spring where undergraduate and graduate students can share their research projects or creative projects. Typically, it's been in person, and you would do sort of a poster board format. And then there will be judges that will assess your presentations, and then you have the potential to win like small scholarships. So in addition to being able to win those small prizes, it's also just a really great resume or CV booster to put on there, and just a really good experience to be able to take your project and condense it down into a poster board or something, and be able to share that with others, and especially to a more non-technical audience. So we are currently trying to figure out what format that's going to be in. It might be back in person next year. It might be sort of a hybrid. We're trying to figure that out, but just something to keep in mind. Registration will open up in January, and then this is typically held in April. So if you want to know more about this in the meantime, you can go to the Research Symposium page and then click on Explore Presentations. And then this is our website for when we did it digitally this year. And so if you were involved in, say, Teachers College, and you wanted to know what people did this past year, you can take a look at these digital exhibits and see if, maybe something you're working on is something you might want to do for the next year or any other year. So we would definitely encourage you to get involved in this. You will need a faculty mentor that will just have to sign off on supporting your project. So if you're interested in anything like this, definitely reach out to them, a faculty member, and I'm sure they'll be happy to support you in participating. And then lastly, real quick, I just wanted to mention that we do have social media channels. So if you wanted to keep in touch with what's going on at SPA or things about any of our events or deadlines coming up, you can also go back to our homepage. And then we have social media links at the bottom here. And then if you went back to the Student Symposium page, we also have social media links for that too. And that'll be really helpful to keep you in the loop about deadlines and such coming up for the Student Symposium if you use Facebook and Twitter. And then lastly, we do publish blog posts on our website. You can see those from our main page and then go to our full blog here. And these are just stories that celebrate research that's going on at Ball State. A lot of them do feature students who do research too. So if you're interested in learning more about, the impacts that we're making at Ball State, definitely check this out as well. So if anybody has any questions, we'll be happy to answer them, but I will also go ahead and turn it over to Augusta to kind of wrap things up. It does look like we have a couple questions here. Or do we?
Yeah. So
Oh, from Brenda.
Oh.
Brenda, you said, I wanted to ask if anyone was a research assistant for a faculty member. Were you asking just the group?
I'm asking anybody that's on here right now, because if you are, sometimes your faculty members will want you to request articles for them. And there's a system where you have to set it, well, you should set up a proxy so you can do that. Yeah, that needs to be in place, because your interlibrary loan account is for you, and the proxy allows you to work interlibrary loan for your faculty member. I don't think there are any parameters for grant searching where you have to be a proxy. You can just go into spin and you're good to go. But for interlibrary loan, there is that proxy, and it has to do with copyright. So I just wanted to let folks know.
Thanks, Brenda.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if there are any questions, we can hang on the line for a little bit longer. And if you think about if you think of a question in the middle of the night, because I know that happens to me regularly, I will wake up and have a burning question. You can email us later. We will follow up with this with a link to the recording and a post survey. And please do take the survey, because we do use those comments to hopefully make things better in the future. And we also take, if you have ideas about maybe subject matter that you as students would be interested in on the topic of grant seeking, funding opportunities, things like that. I know this is very high level, so if you think of something, definitely let us know. And I believe if there are no questions, that is all we have for today.
I just want to say thank you, and thank you for your patience, everyone.
Yes, thank you
Appreciate it.
for being here.